Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Northfield. My name is Brenda McCoy. A little closer to the mic, okay. My late husband and I moved here 9 years ago in August, and one of the very first things that we did upon arrival was to join this wonderful congregation. And I have, very shortly thereafter, I found myself in charge of greeters and newcomers and what all else, and I've loved every minute of it. This is my happy place. So here I am, trying something new. I've been welcoming people all these years, and this is the first time I've done it from the pulpit, so to speak. It's been especially arranged for me, and I thank Sara for that. UUFN is an inclusive community that nurtures spiritual and intellectual growth and fosters ethical and social responsibility. If you are a visitor, either on site or online, we are glad you are with us, and we invite you to stay after the service to get acquainted. We welcome your questions and look forward to getting to know you. Each week, we join together in a practice of building a better world in community. Later in the service, we will collect an offering, and we will split it with an outside organization to help us remember that we can't make the world a better place on our own. This month's Share the Plate recipient is Side with Love. This is the Unitarian Universalist Association's public advocacy campaign. Side with Love advocates for change such as immigration reform, racial justice, equality for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer people, religious freedom, and more as they work to make love real in the world. During our offertory time later in the service, you are invited to give online from our website, northfield.org, or as our baskets pass. Thank you in advance for your generosity. I call your attention to the announcements in your order of service and the weekly email. There you'll find more information about our fall programming calendar, including more about our next drop-in visitor information session after the service on October the 8th. Join us next Sunday for our guest speaker, Gwen Westerman. Gwen is a professor of English at Mankato State University and has Dakota and Cherokee heritage. She will speak about her roots deep in the landscape of the tall grass prairie and how they reveal themselves in her work, in her art and writing. Again, welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Northfield.
Thank you, Taylor. Good morning, all. I am the Reverend Sara Smalley, she, her pronouns, and I serve this congregation as its minister. It is good to be together this morning. Before our opening words, I want to send a hearty and heartfelt thank you to Wyman, Matt, and Reed, who built a wall downstairs this week. Because of their work, we have an actual religious education classroom downstairs for our elementary age children. That's not shared with the kitchen. That's not a space other people are walking through, but a dedicated space for our children to develop community each Sunday. Thank you. We appreciate your work. And now let's move into our opening words as we gather for worship. This month, our theme is the gift of welcome. And today we will be talking about expansive welcome as well as the limits of welcome. Let me be clear as we begin. We say it all the time, but I want you to really know this truth today. You are welcome here. Some of us are bringing our best selves to this space, and some of us are bringing our struggling selves, including pieces we might be ashamed of. All of us are welcome here, and all of us are loved. Some of us already have open hearts, and some of us aren't quite there yet because our hearts have gotten a little beat up this week and might have forgotten how to trust and open. Your heart is welcome here, no matter how bruised. We welcome you among us. All of us are imperfect, but we're here to drop our defenses and trust that what happens in worship is powerful and life-giving. Together, we affirm that this day and our being together can make each of us braver, more compassionate, and wiser than when we woke up this morning. Come, let us worship together.
The flaming chalice is the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. Each Sunday when we gather, we bring this symbol to life together. Please join me in speaking the words for the lighting of the chalice. Let us open our eyes to see what is beautiful. Let us open our minds to learn what is true. Let us open our hearts to love one another. Please rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, number 1031 in your teal hymnal. Filled with loving kindness.
I invite you now to allow yourself an unhurried, unclenched breath. Relax your shoulders, inhale and exhale. Become grounded in this moment and in this space, and let your heart catch up with you. In the presence of a love that holds us all, we use our chalice flame to light our candles of community. We light our first candles as a blessing for the wider world. First, a candle of joy for Bisexual Pride Day yesterday and Bisexual Awareness Week this week. And second, a candle of sorrow, tender and raw. September is also Suicide Prevention Month, and this flame holds all those who have thought about or attempted suicide, those who have died by suicide, and those who love and grieve them. May this flame be a reminder that the human condition includes this depth of pain, as well as an even deeper truth, that what we can talk about, we can face, and that what we love endures. May its light guide all who need it towards healing. We know too that the details of our daily lives are sacred and important, and we now light a candle for all of the simple joys that are sustaining us. And we move into a time of reflection and connection that some call prayer. Spirit of life and love, our hearts are overflowing with lamentation and longing. Longing for a world with more hope and less despair. Longing for more happy hearts and fewer hungry mouths. Longing for a life of more connection and less isolation. Longing for a brave love, a seed growing within us, spreading far and wide. Longing for a future of less consumption and more compassion, actually longing for that right now. Longing for a government that quells hate and violence rather than generates it. Longing for a nation that acknowledges its injustices and works to make them right. Longing for a present with each of us doing what is ours to resist racism and all forms of systemic oppression. Longing for companions to give us courage, that we might be the people these times require to bring about beloved community. In this circle of care and compassion, we hold those who have had their joys shared with us, for each shared joy is a form of nourishment for us all. And in this circle of care and compassion, we faithfully witness those who have shared their sorrows with us, for each shared sorrow touches our hearts, and we accept the call to lighten the burden of another. In these next few moments of shared stillness, let our hearts pray the prayers or whisper the truths only they know. Let us enter into a time of silence. Amen, and blessed be.
Our first reading this morning is by Linda Susan Ulrich. Open up the doors. Push on looming wooden arches embroidered with ironwork. Brace shoulders against the weight of history unmoved. Slough off the musty smell of unused joy and stored up sorrow. Knock rust off the hinges if you have to, and let your breath precede you inside. Open the doors more. Make room for a shaft of sunlight to cross the threshold. Give the dust motes something to dance about. Peek through the single slice of possibility and name even the half-hidden truths you see. Open the doors wider still. Pour yourself through the gap. Strut or sneak or sidle as suits you best. Cleanse whatever scrapes catch your skin and bind up the wounds that keep you from entering whole. Open the doors as far as they will go. Draw on the strength of stones beneath you. Ground yourself in a firm sense of who you are. Stand as a beacon welcoming the next seeker and shine far beyond the lintel and sill. Open all that you are. Heighten and deepen your connections to the world around you. Broaden your definition of neighbor. Grow into the largest target for grace that you can muster. And pray to become a gateway for even greater love and compassion. Open up the doors, my friends, lest we keep the stranger out and condemn ourselves to prisons of our own making. Our second reading is from Prentice Hemphill, a therapist, somatic teacher, facilitator, and political organizer for gender and racial liberation. Their quote, "Boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously," was one they originally wrote in a reflection on social media about their relationship with their father. In our reading today, Prentice reflects more on this quote with author and movement leader Ariane Mary Brown on the Emergent Strategy podcast. For me, there is big love. There are people I have boundaries with that I'm like, I don't know if I love you, but I know there is big love. There's an intactness. I want to remain intact and want other people to remain intact. For me, that has to do with love. It might not be that I love you in the same sense that I love my nephew, but I want everybody's sovereignty over themselves. Boundaries give us the space to do the work of loving ourselves. They might be actually the first and fundamental expression of self-love. They also give us the space to love and witness others as they are, even those that have hurt us. We actually don't have much information about how to be with our own boundaries. And when I work with clients, I have to say, it's not like you're going to identify a boundary and be like, oh, that feels so good. That feels so great. I held that boundary and it was awesome. It is the opposite. Love doesn't always feel like a weighted blanket and hot cocoa. Sometimes it feels like withdrawal. Boundaries and shame are all tied up together. And the reason it is hard for you to hold boundaries is because you feel shameful to hold boundaries where you need them. But really, it is a very loving act to have boundaries. We will now gratefully give and receive our offering for our Share the Plate recipient Side with Love, which seeks to harness love's power to stop oppression. You may also place your pledges with the word pledge written in the memo line. So our greeters are bringing the baskets forward, and so we will accept your offerings gratefully.
Open the doors more and wider still. Open the doors as far as they will go. Open all that you are. Open up the doors, my friends. My heart quickens when I imagine this. What would it be like to live in that world where each and all are a gateway to greater love? This is the world our Universalist ancestors dreamed of. It is the big love Prentice Hemphill talks about, and the ever-expanding circles of loving kindness we sang about in our opening hymn. Universalism, in our Unitarian Universalist heritage, is the idea that the gift of welcome is for everyone. Historically, Universalism was the idea that there was universal salvation, not salvation for a few of God's chosen ones, but salvation for all. Not a theology that some are chosen, but rather that all are loved. In Universalism, there is no one outside of love's circle. And any apparent divisions are falsehoods created by humans, not judgment from God. And in Universalism, we are called to make this divine truth a reality on earth by loving everyone, no exceptions. And that's where it gets tricky. No exceptions. If we claim to throw open our doors wide and love everyone, the question is often, why aren't there more Republicans in our sanctuaries? There are some, but why aren't there more? Would we offer a warm Universalist welcome to a fundamentalist Christian preacher in this pulpit? Reverend Gretchen Haley tells this story. I'm guessing we all have that one friend, maybe from high school, or maybe they aren't a friend, maybe they're family. My one friend I met in seminary. He was a Lutheran, but not the progressive kind. We were sincerely friends, though. He was smart and interesting and extremely dedicated to his very conservative faith. And every so often, he'd compare his faith with mine, specifically by noting how we Unitarian Universalists, or we liberals more generally, are such hypocrites. Because we say that we are open to everyone, but what we really mean is we are open to people who think just like us. We say we are open to all ways of thinking and all beliefs, unless you believe being gay is a sin, for example. Or we say we are welcoming of all, except those who would say there is only one true God and one true religion in Christ. When this happens, he'd say, we become just as fundamentalist as he is. He would say these things in an offhand way, but he meant them. There was, from his perspective, a fundamental problem with our way of doing religion. This problem, Reverend Haley rightly points out, is the problem of universalism. If we say no one is outside of love's circle, no exceptions, do we really mean no exceptions? No exceptions, like historically the example, even Hitler? Or after 2012 or 2016, the question became no exceptions, not even Trump? I don't actually struggle with this all that much. I am clear that yes, even Trump is within the circle of love because we all are. To cast him outside of love's circle is too easy. It makes him somehow other, outside, and therefore not my responsibility. But if he's outside of the circle I'm in, I don't have to really deal with him. I can dismiss him as other. But if he's inside of the circle, the same circle that I'm in, that we're all in, I can't pretend that we're not a part of the very same broken and beautiful web. However, I am also clear that though Trump is included in the big love, the widest circle of love, he would not be welcome in this pulpit. More than that, I believe it is the loving thing to do to exclude him. This is why Reverend Haley's Lutheran friend calls us hypocrites, but I think it is what is most true and authentic about our faith. After Trump was elected, Unitarian Universalist congregations across the United States threw open their doors for vigils, lamentations, and organizing. People who had never come through the doors of a UU congregation before, especially LGBTQ people, flooded into our sanctuaries. It's a time known in progressive churches as the Trump bump. People were hungry for something. These were people who had never been authentically welcomed in a church, who were scared, who were threatened, and who were longing for community, hope, and true welcome. Again, the words of Reverend Haley. These questions get at the boundaries of our community. Who belongs and who does not, and why? As Charles Vogel says in his book, The Art of Community, a boundary is the recognized demarcation between insiders and outsiders. The boundary should be more about making the inside space safe for insiders than about keeping outsiders out. Where there's a boundary, insiders feel more confident that they share values and that they understand one another better. For example, Reverend Haley continues, a few months ago, we held a small group for grandparents who were trying to understand gender. And the boundary for being a part of that group is you needed to have a grandchild who was themselves exploring gender, and you needed to be sincerely trying to understand gender yourself. If someone tried to attend who didn't have a grandchild, or who was not at all trying to understand and instead was judgmental or closed off, it would significantly decrease trust in the group and make it feel unsafe. Boundaries are the way we define what we say yes to and what we say no to or who we say yes to, who is our no. They are good walls we put up, grounded not in fear or hatred or judgment or othering, but in love. In community, boundaries are rooted in shared values, common interests, and or behavioral expectations, which is why boundaries are usually one of the first things newcomers are trying to get a feel for when they are getting to know us, even if they don't name it in that exact way. They want to know what our values are, what's expected, and if they'll fit in. What beliefs are welcome, what identities, what cultures, what abilities, what practices, what emotional states. You would not believe the number of people who apologize to me for crying at church, because crying in a lot of relatively public places would be crossing a boundary, but not here. Church is a very good, safe, and appropriate place to cry. Crying isn't one of our boundaries, but that doesn't mean we don't have boundaries. If our doors are open to people who loudly or even subtly profess that being gay is a sin, we are not welcoming to LGBTQ children, youth, adults, or families. If UUFN is a safe space for racists, it is not a safe space for anyone who isn't white. It's not hypocritical to say everyone is loved, no exceptions, but bigots are not welcome here. In other words, all people are welcome here, but all behaviors are not. We love more fully when we exclude that which is not loving. As Unitarian Universalists, we are a people of covenant, not creed. It is our relationships, not our beliefs, that unite us. A covenant is not a legalistic list of thou shalt not or else. Covenant is not judgment. It is not a tool we can use to bludgeon and shame people if they make a mistake or cause harm. Covenant is the promises we make to one another. Covenant offers the possibility of grace in the midst of all the complicatedness of being human. Covenant offers a path for restoring right relationship through accountability and repair. I'm especially struck by the importance of having such a mechanism like this to bring people back into right relationship as a part of one's religious practice today, when Yom Kippur begins at sundown. In the Jewish calendar, this is the Day of Atonement. It is the holiest day of the Jewish year. It is the day Jewish Unitarian Universalists and Jewish peoples across the planet engage in intense soul searching and seek forgiveness for their sins against God and make amends to other human beings they have harmed. Covenant, the spiritual practice, the messy, the beautiful spiritual practice of covenant, recognizes if the doors are thrown wide open, humanity comes in. The whole wide messiness of humanity, others and our own, becomes present in the room. And we can learn to hold boundaries with love. This is true for us theologically, denominationally, congregationally, and it is also true for us individually. We practice in our congregations how we want the world to be, and we practice in our lives how we want our congregations to be. And so I want to shift into thinking about this topic on a more personal level, how we can practice this spiritual stance of fiercely loving everyone and having boundaries in our lives. We can have covenants with each other, and we can also honor covenants with ourselves. Buddhism has much to teach about this. Buddhist loving kindness meditation expands the field of loving kindness from self to someone you love, to someone you're neutral about, to someone that's a challenge for you, and then to neighborhoods, cities, nations, until the entire earth is included in the field of loving kindness that started in your own heart. In metta, the practice of loving kindness, you always begin with yourself because that is where love begins. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be whole. Love begins with self, and boundaries begin with self. At a Buddhist retreat a number of years ago, the teacher Sherry Maples made a point that having clear boundaries was important in establishing compassion. She had struggled with her son, who was in his 20s and dealing with a lot of mental health, addiction, and legal issues. She loved him fiercely and forever. And she says, it is also true that metta calls us to establish boundaries without guilt. Some sample meditations she used to support boundaries with her son included: may I remain in peace and let go of expectations. May I care about your pain, knowing I can't control it. May I wish you happiness and peace with the understanding that I can't make your choices for you. May I see my limits compassionately, just as I see the limitations of others. May I have the inner strength to maintain my boundaries and thus preserve the relationship. May I offer my care and presence without condition, knowing that they may be met by gratitude, anger, or indifference. Metta calls us to establish boundaries without guilt. The without guilt part can be a struggle because we want to be good and loving people. We want to be helpful, even at the expense of ourselves sometimes. Boundaries and shame are all tied up together, says Prentice Hempel. And the reason it is hard for you to hold boundaries is because it feels shameful to hold boundaries where you need them, but really it is a very loving act to have boundaries. We don't have a lot of good models for how to do this in our overworked, overstretched culture, where we are rewarded for being nice and helpful. Perhaps a story will help. You may recognize this one. I hear both laughter and groans. Okay. In this classic book, The Giving Tree, Shel Silverstein writes of a boy and a tree and what happens when we give ourselves to another. I will share a summary of it as a reminder and storytelling for those of you who have not heard it. It starts out, once there was a tree and she loved a little boy. And every day the boy would come and he would gather her leaves and make them into crowns and play king of the forest. It goes on to tell the story of the little boy climbing the tree, swinging from branches and eating delicious apples. As he grew older, the boy visited the tree less and less, but when he did, he asked the tree for help, and the tree willingly gave it. The boy needed money, so the tree gave him her apples to sell, and he went away, and the tree was happy. Then after more years passed, the boy returned again and said, I want a house to keep me warm. I want a wife and I want children, and so I need a house. Can you give me a house? I have no house, answers the tree. The forest is my house, but you may cut off my branches and build a house. And the boy did, and the tree was happy. Again, years passed, and when the boy was an old man, he returned to the tree and said he wanted a boat to take him far away. The tree offered her trunk so he could make a boat and sail away. And the boy cut down her trunk and made a boat and sailed away, and the tree was happy. The book ends with the boy, now a very old man, returning to the tree, now just a stump, and sitting down upon it to rest. And the tree was happy. The end. There is something beautiful about this, about seeing another's need and meeting it fully and being happy because they are happy. But writer Topher Payne created an ending I like even better. In his book, The Tree Who Set Healthy Boundaries, an alternate ending to the Giving Tree, which is available online in a free PDF form. The first half of the book is the same. The boy and the tree delight in each other, him swinging from her branches and them playing hide and seek together. But when the boy returns to the tree as a man and says, I want a house to keep me warm, I want a wife and I want children, and so I need a house. Can you give me a house? The tree doesn't say, yes, cut off my branches and build a house. She responds with, okay, hold up, this is getting out of hand. I was fine with giving you the apples. They'll grow back next season anyway. But no, I'm not giving you a house. I love you like family, but I am not going down like that. In the story, the boy gulps, but he heard what the tree was saying and apologized and didn't ask again. The alternate ending story continues. The boy attends culinary school, and the tree takes courses online to get her certification in small business management. Together, they open a bakery selling the best apple pies anyone had ever tasted, and it turns a profit in the first 18 months, which is most uncommon. Eventually, the boy had a son of his own, and that son had a family too, and the tree continued to grow wider and stronger, standing tall and beautiful in the forest for many, 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 many years, plus a few years even more than that. Topher concludes his alternate ending with this. As each generation played in her strong old branches, the tree often thought back to that fateful day when the boy had asked her for a house. In truth, she would have gladly given him her branches to build one. She would have given him her trunk to build a boat. She loved him that much. But then she would have had nothing left, not for herself nor anyone else. And there never would have been a home for the red squirrels. There'd have been no hide and seek with the boy's grandchildren, no bakery with the best apple pies anyone had ever tasted. And so the tree was happy. Everyone was. The end. I do actually encourage you to read the whole thing. I had to cut out some also delightful details. It's really great. This is an ending where both thrive. There is not less love in the world because the tree had boundaries. In fact, the reverse is true. A whole ecosystem thrived, and the best apple pies were made when the tree loved itself first, was not afraid to say no, and then gave generously what it could as it came fully alive itself. Boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously, says Prentice Hemphill. It is a very loving act to have boundaries. Universalism demands we don't become a closed community that just barely props open its doors so only like-minded people can sneak their way in. But it also doesn't ask us to give up ourselves, our boundaries, or our deepest core values. This is how love grows, steady and wild for generations to come. Our closing hymn today will be Answering the Call of Love, and a note about this for those who don't know. This is the hymn that was rewritten to be more inclusive by changing ableist and stagnant language to an active invitation. We don't just stand on the side of love, we are answering the call of love. Please rise and body our spirit as we join our voices together. Number 1014 in the Teal hymnal, Answering the Call of Love. Amen. Thank you. You may be seated for our closing benediction, which is We Hold Hope Close by Teresa Soto. In this community, we hold hope close. We don't always know what comes next, but that cannot dissuade us. We don't always know just what to do, but that will not mean that we are lost in the wilderness. We rely on the certainty beneath, the foundation of our values and ethics. We are the people who return to love like a North Star and to the truth that we are greater together than we are alone. Our hope does not live in some glimmer of an indistinct future. Rather, we know the way to the world of which we dream. And by covenant and the movement forward of one right action and then the next, we know that one day we will arrive home. We join together in the words for the extinguishing of the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Please rise in body or spirit, and with your hands over your heart, holding the hand of one next to you, or whatever posture is most comfortable for you, we sing words of blessing one to another. Go in peace.